Welcome, everybody. My name is Charlsie Baldwin. I'm the co-founder of Twin Legacy Solutions, and welcome to the Future Proof Leader podcast. This is where we bring in business leaders to talk about AI and leadership and other fun topics. Today, we have a really exciting guest. Today, we're talking with Josh Saterman, CEO, co-founder, dad, author of Saterman Connect. Welcome so much, and thank you for joining. Can you just kick us off? Tell us about yourself.
So as you said, I'm Josh, and I am the CEO of Saterman Connect. I'm really excited to be here. I love the world of HR and leadership development, talent development, culture and engagement. And so can't wait to explore our topic today.
And you wrote a book. I want to hear about this book too as we go.
Arrive, drive, thrive. So
It's catchy though. I love that.
thank you.
And I'm sure we'll hear more about that as we dive in. But so let's just jump in. So I kind of like to start with a simple one up front, right? So let's just talk about leader alignment. What does leader alignment actually mean in the context of this AI era that we're all living in? And why is it suddenly so critical?
Great question. So there's a couple of points to the question, three specific points. First is when we talk about leadership development, we talk about this leadership pipeline. We developed Drive Thrive as a framework, if you will. I affectionately say a love language to leadership development that starts with leading self, moves into leading others, leading teams, leading functions, and ultimately leading the enterprise. And in a world of AI, what is elevating for us as leaders is critical thinking. While many people today are just getting started, and I don't say this to be disrespectful or talk down to, we are all finding our entry point to AI. And yet, what we look forward to in the future is the idea that human critical thinking can generate the power, harness the speed, the productivity, the efficiencies of the way that AI can support us in the workplace. And that ties back immediately to point one, which is that leadership pipeline of leading self all the way through leading enterprise. And we wrote the book Arrive, Drive, Thrive with the idea that you arrive as an individual, you drive as a team, and you thrive as an organization. Or said differently, you arrive as an emerging leader, a rising leader, you drive as a growing or advancing leader, and ultimately you thrive as a senior leader. Not an executive, that's a title, but really a senior leader, someone that adds value to the full company leadership pipeline. And this ties back to that third point of when we understand the power of our leadership, leveraging, using emotional intelligence, we can more powerfully harness the full spectrum of what AI offers our companies to help us support us delivering the mission of our company.
I love that. I like how you really kind of hone in on like you arrive as an individual, right? You have to first you have to figure out how to lead yourself and then you can lead others. That's really interesting take on that. You talk about the 5 C's a lot, and I'd love if you could just kind of break those down for us. So just high level, right? Just explain what are the 5 C's and how do you see that showing up inside organizations?
Yeah, so great question. We love our models because they're practical. What we hear in the HR world a lot is lots of great theory. Thanks, great concept. But what's the practical? Where does rubber meet the road? And so when we stepped back for a minute, and for perspective, I've been the head of culture engagement for a large company and done the work in terms of in-house. And what I realized is that communication, collaboration, curiosity, change, and commitment were 5 C's that companies require in order to stay in alignment. In other words, if we can't communicate in a healthy two-way exchange, sharing data and information that both parties need in order to do their jobs more effectively, it's hard to stay aligned around a corporate goal. Because I might be coming at from my slice and you're coming from it from your slice. And if we don't communicate together about those motivating factors or success factors, we can't stay aligned to the corporate goal to deliver the ultimate result for the company. And so communication, collaboration, curiosity, change, and commitment are 5 C's that ultimately create common language, another C. And common language is another way that we think about the culture of an organization, the connection points of an organization, creating community within an organization. You see the theme, it's in your name, Charlsie. So the C's, right? And so when we think about the word connection, what's powerful in an era of AI is still this human touch around multifunctional dynamic, multi-campus dynamic, multi-purpose that leads to singular mission, right? So that each of us are coming with that lens of the 5 C's to deliver the company objectives.
Absolutely. You mentioned the human side to it. We pride ourselves on saying HI plus AI. You've probably heard that before, right? But that human intelligence piece is extremely important in the AI era. You can't just throw AI at it. There's definitely always going to need that human element to make sure that companies can thrive, right? Of those 5 C's, and obviously you have a very successful business. You talk to a lot of business leaders out there, so you probably see some of the pain points and can speak to it. What are you seeing as the most common one? Where are leaders really struggling with those 5 C's right now?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna guess. I could guess. But
what's your guess? Well, if you had to guess, what would you say?
I would say
change.
No.
Yeah. So no, you're not wrong. I love all of my 5 C's. If I had 5 children, I only have 1 daughter, but if I had 5 children, I'd love them all the same. And yet the truth is that where there's equity in, or fairness or access in all of the 5 C's are starting places. We do see waves to it where some are more than others. The truth is that, I mean, for any of those business leaders that are out there, if I say the word agile, you'll be like, yep, I've heard that word before. You hear the word adaptable, right? You've heard that word before. Change is becoming that word. Change is now becoming exhausting to leaders because they're like, yeah, we've been dealing with change for 6 years. We've been dealing with change actually every year, but the rate of change, Harvard Business Review, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, these are resources that have talked a lot about the power of change, right? I always love to give a nod to Mita Mallick, whose recent book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, right? She talks about leadership. She talks about the different kinds of leadership, what good leaders can learn from bad bosses. Arrive, Drive, Thrive is all about empower your leadership, right? What we're trying to get at here is that, yes, change is ever present. Well, what are the kinds of change happening in this moment? So yes, I do think actually that change is what I would call pervasive. But the truth is that you ask the question, like, what's the one thing? And I love, that's why I'm excited to be on this podcast, is I love that this idea of human intelligence combined with artificial intelligence. The truth is that we, for far too long, have benchmarked our leadership with how busy we are. How busy is our calendar? I'm a product of that. My meetings are slammed. My days are slammed. That's not a badge of pride. In the new world that we will live in, critical thinking is more important than being busy. Let me give an example. One of the things I educate on, and our company educates on, we're talking with C-suite and boards, is that at the end of the day, there are differences, common language between meetings and working sessions. Why does that matter? Because when you're managing change at the pace and rate that we are today, meetings are opportunities for alignment. How you write your agendas, how they're connected to company priorities. Where does that sit between quarterly, seasonal, and annual goal setting? Whether you use KPIs or OKRs doesn't really make a difference. What the punchline is that we need to stay connected and have alignment across the enterprise in order to deliver results, or connected across our teams, or connected across various functions. And the reason this is important is that meetings are not working sessions, right? Meetings are opportunities for us to connect and align. Working sessions are opportunities for us to connect and do the work together. And so I share that because oftentimes what I find is most leaders keep saying to me, I'm so busy, I can't possibly fill in the blank on the X. That's not a badge of pride. Humans used to be able to have the ability to daydream and think and innovate. And that's why when you look back on history, you see these, at the time, unfortunately, it was mostly men, but even women, as women's rights became more and more important, and they were always important, to be clear, but more and more important in the world of society, right, is you see these people lounging on the rock, philosophizing, or lounging on the rock, crafting math, or sitting in book clubs. And what they're doing was they were actually innovating. They were actually creating the change that our world was being a part of. And in the same way today, we have the opportunity to think about how we get more productive using AI and give our brains actually a little bit more space and time to think in order to actually re-engage our brains around critical thinking.
Yeah, that's really interesting take on that. And, when you were talking about that, I was thinking of, you picture the Google workspace, right? they have the lounges and the couches, and it really fosters that innovative thinking that you were just describing. And that's just a really great perspective on it, that AI is really just freeing your brain to have more of that, right? More of the capability and the time. Time is so valuable. And like you said, we're all on back-to-back calls, but that's not a measure of success just because your day is booked.
Right.
And you're right, it leaves very little time for thought in between when you're just bouncing call to call like that.
100%.
So really interesting perspective. Can you think of an example of either a company that you've worked with in the past or a leader you've seen? But when you see misalignment at that leadership level, how does that actually show up in day-to-day operations when companies are trying to implement these changes and adopt AI? How are you seeing those kind of problems show up?
Well, first, we have to think about what I said before is I always talk about with leaders, and again, when I say leaders, I do not mean this as reserved for leaders at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Any person can be a leader. And so when I'm engaging, though, with specifically C-suite or specifically board, and we're thinking about the strategic planning process and what the organization is facing, a lot of times what we talk about is when addressing AI, really anything, we must look at motivating factors, success factors, and recognition factors. What's in it for the workforce? It's a team, a function, an individual. What's in it for the workforce? That's called the WIFM. What's in it for me? And we also need to look at the WIFO, what's in it for the organization, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. That's why engagement and fulfillment and the work that we do as a company, talent development, culture and engagement, leadership, right? This is the essence of where HR, my opinion, is going, is thought leadership and leveraging what I'll refer to as human intelligence, which I love. So I think about that for a second, because the first thing that people are thinking with AI is the most basic human need is my job is going to be eliminated and I'm not going to be able to pay for my health insurance, college, mortgage, rent, right? You see it happening in today, right? You see it happening in terms of where workforces and engagement levels are dipping because it's a reflection of, is my job secure?
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing to always say, and this is what we talk about with companies, is while we recognize that there's not always space for explosive growth in year one, for most companies, there actually is no ceiling. Nobody's telling you you can only grow at X or Y rate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are emphatic, if you are resolute around your mission statement, if you believe in your mission statement, then the power of AI is spreading your word more clearly, more efficiently, more proactively, more productively, and again, freeing up space for the workforce to also be engaged. This is the key here, is engaged. When your workforce is engaged, you have higher productivity, meaning you have higher thinking, you have higher innovation, you have higher creative ideas, and you can still stay true to your message, but what you can also do is really expand the impact that your company is able to make, right? And so the best companies that we've worked with understand that connection between healthy culture and delivering incredible results. You can deliver results without a healthy culture. At some point, that runs out.
Right.
At some point, when you are not harnessing the talent of your team, if you look back on history, those companies have hit a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're able to recover, they've lost market share, they've lost brand awareness, or they've lost brand integrity. Right? You're in a relationship with your client, your patient, your customer. And so the ability to harness AI and understand the workforce culture and the workforce needs is so imperative to long-term success. If you're sitting in growth mindset and you are adding value to your company, are you still going to lose your job to AI? And that's at the core of somebody's motivating factor and whether or not they're going to use an agentic model or GPT function. They're going to use that agentic model in order to progress the organization. That's what we talk about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think that there is a fear factor out there, of course, right? We hear about that quite a bit, that people are scared that they're going to lose their jobs. That is a real fear that people have. And I think it does start with the leadership, right? Of being able to help to really address those fears with your team, because people can't function at their best when they're going to work every day with a fear factor weighing them down of, am I going to have a job in a month, in a year? So I think just being really direct and upfront and having that strategy really does help from the employee level to know I have some job security here, right? Nobody wants to go to work not feeling that security. That's just,
100%.
yeah, that's just going to kill your growth. Absolutely. Well, as we
Yeah.
start to wrap up here, I would love just your insight on what's next. What do you see in the future here with AI and how it's impacting the landscape, especially with leaders? What's something exciting you're kind of looking forward to, or that you're predicting for the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, but the rate that AI is changing, I should say next month, but just in the future in general.
I can't stress enough the reason why the 5 C's of effective leadership and teamwork are so connected to the world of AI is, again, that common language, that purpose, driving company results and goals, and leveraging the intelligence of your workforce to get there. And so we're spending a ton of time around leadership alignment, digestible goals, thinking about how to future ready organizations for pivots, whether it's political, whether it's economic, whether it's societal changes, whether it's global or domestic, right? The idea here is, again, understanding Simon Sinek calls them the critical skills, right? So formerly known as hard skills and soft skills, which, by the way, is of military background. That's the inception of that, right? The evolution in the leadership space is really this idea of technical skills and critical skills, because AI is taking on so much of the technical skill, right? You can do a math problem more efficiently. You can do X, Y, or Z more efficiently, just because of that agentic model. What you can't do is yet is it can't think for you. It's not putting the data in for you, right? And so you still have to give it some level of guidance, and that comes from the critical skills. How are we listening to the needs of our environment? How are we translating our customer, patient, consumer needs, right? Where have we learned and can actually plug in what's happening within the business space that we sit in, the industries that we sit in, right? Or the teams or functions we sit in. So these critical skills are more important than ever. Listening actively, communicating effectively, right? Collaborating and sharing ideas, creating safe space. Some people call it psychological safety or building trust. We would just call it creating environments where people feel they can share more openly, right? So these are some of the technical, critical skills that we bring to organizations to be able to leverage AI and make our workplaces a bit more fun to be around. Work should be a little bit fun.
It should be.
Right?
We spend so much time there. It really should be.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I love my job. We have such fun. And we're doing meaningful, impactful work and delivering bottom line results for companies.
I love that. Josh, this has been great. I really enjoyed talking to you. And, for anyone watching this, where can they find more information about you or your book?
Yeah, so we'd love you to connect with us on satermanconnect.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. You can follow me, Josh Saterman, or Michael Saterman. We're two of the three original founders. You can reach out to us at hello@satermanconnect.com. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. Buy our book, buy our Arrive, Drive, Thrive, and experience it for yourself. Learn a bit more about us there as well. And we'd love to connect. We'd love to talk. Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, and best of luck as you continue to tackle 2026. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. All right, I'll click stop. Pretty paying